Growing up, I remember asking my grandfather, what does it mean to be between the rock and the hard place? And what does that actually mean? And basically he's like telling me in this Pennsylvania Dutch accent, hey Dane, you know what it is that when you're looking at somebody who's between a rock and a hard place, is that they have two things going on. And essentially, if they choose one option over another, they're still going to have a pretty shitty outcome. And what's interesting here is that it 100% reminds me of your boy Jerome Powell, who was just in Jackson Hole, aka J-Hole in Wyoming, and he talked about, he's very likely going to cut rates in September. And if we think about what is the purpose of the Fed, it's to keep rates or inflation in line, and it's also to make sure and to have some type of impact on what is happening with job hiring. Now, they like to use core inflation. Okay, so CPI is at 3.1% currently as of today. This is Friday when he was in the J-hole. Okay, and the issue with that is that because we are getting to a point where we should not be cutting rates, because this could in fact lead to more inflation. The issue is also that jobs are actually getting to be, a lot harder to get. The reason being, part of the reason that I think is that a lot of people, a lot of companies are starting to use agentic AI, and a lot of companies, a lot of CEOs out there are already talking about they're able to use AI to essentially get rid of a lot of different jobs. The interesting part here is your boy, DJ Trump, DJT, was mad that, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics came back and said that, they had to revise the jobs and stuff like that. And he ends up firing the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And essentially, long story short, he wants the jobs to look as though they're better, which is also weird because it sort of goes against his reasoning for Jay Powell to actually cut rates in September. Now, all of these things don't really matter in the sense that Jay Powell is essentially going to cut rates here in September and possibly again by the end of the year, possibly. Now, what does this mean for us being between a rock and a hard place for the Fed? For normal people out there, what does this mean? I don't really think it means that much. Currently today, we're seeing some of the markets starting to pop off, right? And we're seeing that, a lot of stocks are starting to rise a little bit, and we're probably going to see that for 2 days. But does that really matter as far as the long term? No, it doesn't really matter as far as the long term is concerned. What I think actually matters is that we just have to continue to focus on long-term investing and recognize the reason why jobs are falling off. Okay, so if we look at things like agentic AI and we recognize that, okay, companies like Salesforce are claiming that they're going to be the answer for agentic AI and that they're going to have AI figured out in their CRM, and they're going to make a big comeback here in 25 and 26. But in reality, it's probably not going to be the case because you have OpenAI, you have Grok, you have Gemini, you have all of these, AI engines that are essentially going to solve a lot of the software problems out there. And so from the perspective of investment, and for normal people, it makes a lot of sense for us to try and dial in on, okay, we're losing a lot of jobs. How can we make some type of profit off of this and be in a decent position in 3, 5, 10 years from now? And I think the big factor starts with looking directly at AI. So you start looking at companies like NVIDIA, TSMC, different realms of AI, AMD, okay? And then the next key aspect that I think we all need to do is we need to recognize and look at, let's see if my head blocks off the sun here. There we go. is that the next thing that we have to do is also recognize what's happening in the crypto space. And the reason being is things that I've covered in the past around stable coins, around the Genius Act, around the Clarity Act. I've gone over this in previous videos. All of those things, okay, are going to start to have a positive impact and basically start to unite the crypto space with Wall Street, okay? So it's going to be much more normal for these things to happen and for crypto to start to take off. And all of these stable coins with Ethereum are going to be taking place, most of them on Ethereum. Now, for normal people, what does this mean? It still goes back to, we have to recognize, okay, in the AI, field space area, there's a lot of different aspects that are going to be making more money. There's chips, there's going to be energy, that's going to be a huge space that's going to have to keep up with all of these different aspects. There's infrastructure, there's so many different realms of AI that we can start to really invest in. There's ETFs that we can invest in. There's simple things like that. Also, another simple thing that we can look at is what's going to happen with Bitcoin, or more importantly, how, if we have agentic AI, and then eventually a lot of these companies. So right now, Tom Lee just came out, he was on a podcast called The Compound, where he was talking about there's a lot of trade jobs that have been lost, okay? Like, a lot of people have been going to college for liberal arts degrees, losers like myself who are religious studies majors, and they didn't get into trade. And the way that these companies are trying to solve this is they're using robotics. And so we have to recognize that robotics is a whole nother area of AI, and we have to figure out, okay, can we get into some type of robotics company or something like that as far as investments are concerned? So as we look at this long term and we think about where can we put our money now 3, 5, 10 years so that it builds out over time and we have some success out of this completely new revamping of the US financial system. We're completely ready for AI. We're completely as ready as we can be. And we're also ready for the crypto flow to start to unite with the fiat currency, essentially, what we're seeing now with stable coins. We have to look and position ourselves as well as we possibly can. And so the first thing, obviously, that we all need to do is make sure we're freaking holding our jobs as well as we possibly can. The second thing is make sure that we're paying our bills off and we're doing as good a job as we can to save $10,000. We're doing as good a job as we can to save our emergency fund. We're doing as good a job as we can to start to save $100,000. And then we're eventually getting to the point where we can start investing and purchasing specific assets. And that's the biggest thing for me personally, is that this is not financial advice for anyone out there, but more so a thought process for me, is that I'm trying to figure out, okay, what companies should I get into? Okay, AMD, Bitmine is a weird one, but I did get into it. I'm not really sure how I feel about that. Maybe I should do a whole video on that. Getting into things like SoFi, this is going to be the way that I think the banking industry is going to go. You're going to start to see even companies like JP Morgan who are creating their own stable coins. They're going to start to change their model and they're going to start to improve. You're not going to see any type of success immediately, but long term, I do think those companies are going to start to make decent adaptations if they have good leadership. And so really it comes back to recognizing where, looking at a company like AMD, positioning yourself in a company like that, finding the right ETFs that might be supporting AI or other technology areas, possibly when they're down, investing in, for me personally, Ethereum, SUI, Bitcoin, maybe TAO or Bitensor, and then long term trying to continuously save that money, reposition the money into good investments long term. And so really, does the Fed rate cut in September matter? Yes, it does matter to a point, but it only matters in the sense of like that immediate 3 to 5 month time frame. We have a lot of stuff that's going to be happening over the next 6 months to 5 to 10 years. It's going to be a totally different world when we look back at 2025 in 5 to 10 years. And so really, we've got to continue to make sure you dot your financial I's, cross your financial T's, and position yourself as well as you possibly can. I hope this helps somebody out there. Until next time, peace. Now, one thing real quick here that as I'm walking out, as I'm thinking through what I was just saying too, is I do believe the one positive, and my wife and I still have not closed on that property yet that I've talked about in past videos, but we're closing September, early September. Sadly, we're probably not going to see mortgage rates drop for that purchase, but I do think probably mortgage rates are going to drop quite a bit. And I think that could alleviate a little bit of the housing market. And in turn, we might even see, I don't think it's going to resolve everything, but I think that's going to help some people that are looking for like first time home buyers or to upgrade or improve their living situation. So I think that is something big that will help normal people. Peace.